Welcome to the Tapping with Tako podcast. I'm Takato, and my goal here is to help you transition from the military to your civilian career or business. Today, I bring on Abe, a passionate data analyst who has combined his analytic skills with his favorite martial art, jiujitsu. We talk about the lessons he learned while being a military recruiter, how he learned his data skills, and how he leverages LinkedIn to reach potential clients and employers. If you're interested in being a data analyst after the military, or just want to hear a really cool story of how analytical you can get with jiu-jitsu, this episode is for you.
In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. Nikes on the dash, Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. Nikes on the dash, Nikes on the dash.
Well, thanks, Dave, for joining me for the Tapping with Tako podcast. Let's just start with having you do a quick little intro about who you are, what you did in the military, and what you do now.
Hey, thanks for having me on, by the way. So my name's Abe Diaz. I was in the Marine Corps from 2010 to 2020. I got out August 9th, 2020. I was a supply Marine, so count 3051 box kicker. Did that for like 6-7 years, and then I got out from recruiting. I was a recruiter in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Went to college. I'm sure we'll talk about that. And then right now, I'm a data analyst consultant at a pretty boutique small consulting firm in data analytics.
The way that I met you is through one of your LinkedIn posts, and you're super active on LinkedIn, putting a lot of stuff out there. And one of the things that stood out to me was you were talking about how your military experience as a recruiter has helped you in your current career. Can you talk a little bit more about how those things have, those lessons you've learned?
Oh, definitely. So in recruiting, first of all, I absolutely hated it, and I don't feel bad saying that because I think any military recruiter, any branch, they may not have hated it, but they probably didn't have the best time. Like, so I was voluntold to go on recruiting. So I don't know what it's called in the Army, but there's like a HIS list in the Marine Corps where like you're doing drill instructor, you're doing recruiter, you're doing this. Like it's like a P build special duty assignment. So I got recruiting, and then I talked to recruiters previously, and then I actually got there and I started doing it. And basically, I guess to sum it all up, in the Marine Corps you pick up, or in the military you pick up slangs and habits, words that you say in the military. But when you get to recruiting, you got to forget all of that, right? You have to talk like a civilian, right? Because no one's going to understand where's the daggone head, right? Civilians are going to look at you, and so they're going to look at you weird like that, right? That's
Right,
like
right, right,
that.
right.
Not they mention that stuff too when you're like you go to TRS or you're doing those getting out classes, right? So we had to break those habits, right? And I'm so grateful I did that. I went through that experience and I got out that way versus like getting out just from like a regular base, which I'm sure I would have been fine. But in recruiting, you learn how to not talk like an idiot, like in the military, right? I'm just gonna be brutally honest, right? You learn how more importantly how to listen, like how to talk, how to listen, how to be persuasive, how to sell, how to do public speaking, and like those skills. Like I don't do anything right now. I do like sell, like not like I'm selling for money, but sell like visions. Like, hey, I produced this
Yep.
dashboard for this client. Let's say a client wanted to go this way, but it's not possible, so I have to convince them and show them this is why this way is better, right? So a lot of those intangible skills transfer to just communicating better with my spouse, people in general, right? I'm sure we all have heard people that could have probably communicated better, and just like, and once you understand how people communicate and how to listen, those are the skills I pretty much learned. It's like
Yeah.
how to be an effective communicator and how to listen.
Let's dive into one of those. So, like, out of the few
Yeah,
you mentioned, you talk about like being able to sell, being able to communicate, being able to listen. Which one of those do you think have stood out to you or have impacted you the most?
but I would say what I think is the most important is listening, right? Because like you have to listen, because like you can, if you don't listen and you don't build rapport, like get to know someone, and then you try to sell them or you try to convince them, it's just not gonna, it's just more often than not it's gonna fail. But I because like you have to understand what the other person is saying, right? So then you can, if you're trying to persuade someone or something, like I really have to understand what you're saying, so then I can think of, all right, what are relevant features and benefits that can help you in your specific situation. Because if I don't listen and I try to give you like a cookie cutter solution, it's just not gonna, that's you're probably not gonna bite on that, right? You're probably not gonna buy or whatever it is. So
Oh, that's a huge nugget right there. Yeah, being able to listen, because sometimes, like, I read something the other day or listened to something. It's like there's people who listen to reply, and there's people who try to listen to understand, right?
yeah,
And that's a huge difference when it comes to speaking with people.
yeah, definitely. And I still struggle with that too. It's like I was like an okay-ish, average-ish recruiter, right? It was just so hard to want to excel in that because you hated it, so I hated it so much. So I honestly did my best, but just enough because it was like, man, this is brutal. But yeah, all those skills super important. Definitely gotta listen.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like, so you were in recruiting, you're getting out of the military now, and so now you're in school, right?
Yeah.
I think you told me you joined the MBA program, and then
Mhm.
you figured out you liked data analytics. Can you tell us like how you figured out data was your thing?
Yeah, so honestly, so I got out during COVID, right? I was gonna do TRS in Chicago, had to do it online. I'm sure people were affected pretty much almost similar ways, right? So I wanted to be a financial advisor, right? So once I was like right before COVID, I met this career recruiter who was a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. So I went with him, hung out with him a couple times. I was like, man, I thought this is what I really wanted to do, right? And then I just realized like what I didn't want to do it anymore because it was like sales, cold calling, all this crap I was just doing, but in another form. I was just like, no thanks, right? So how I got into data, I knew like this is just like more important overall, like transitioning. Like I wouldn't say like advice or tips. I'm just this is just my perspective. What I think was important. Like if you're getting out, my goal was to work full time or at least part time and go to school. So I think everyone that might be listening to this and getting out, have at least one or both of those things figured out. Just like little quick gold nugget of advice because I think that was like crucial, right? So how I got into data, there was like American Corporate Partners. It's like business professional organizations, and you sign up and you get assigned another veteran who's doing what you want to do, right? So I got assigned this guy out of Boston. He was a financial advisor. So we connected. We talked for a year. They have mentors like that for whatever types of careers, right? So I was doing that with him, and then I was like, man, financial advising, I don't know anymore. And then I did a veteran seminar at Morgan Stanley. It was virtual, and the chief data officer was a former Army guy. And basically, I seen something in there that said wealth data analytics, and then like that week during school, in one of my first classes, we learned about data and analytics, and I was like, I just put two and two together, and I was like, man, this stuff sounds cool. So I just started going deep on that pretty much.
What was that one thing that clicked for you that was like, oh, data is my thing though, like
I
in your
was like
class?
money. So I did MBA in finance, and one of the classes was information systems management. And one of the weeks they talk about business intelligence, data analytics, and then like around the same time, that's when I saw that job that said wealth data analytics. Because the Morgan Stanley guy on the seminar, he put up careers in Morgan Stanley, right? All these different careers, and it said wealth data analytics. So I was like, money, finance, analytics. All right, let me mesh these two together. And it seems like you could. So I just started learning about it. That was like end of 2020. So
Yep. That's cool though. Like you figured out you didn't like something and then you pivoted and shifted. And I feel like that happens a lot, like even as a military veteran or even not as a military veteran. And going through this, like what do you recommend those people who want to do something like, oh well, I don't want to do that anymore and they gotta shift.
yeah, so I heard something in a recent video, like a quick clip that said, if you find out something that you hate doing, quit it as soon as you can. Right? This data scientist was interviewing another data scientist like in a similar platform like this, and he was like, the dude was like, I hated chemistry. I wish I would have quit sooner than finish my degree. Right? So I feel like I was fortunate enough to find out like before I got too deep. Right? Before I took like an internship and then I wasted a bunch of that time. And then it's also more like knowing yourself, see self improvement, like self awareness, right? Like and being honest with yourself, like yeah, I'm gonna keep doing it just because I should. I already started, but there's nothing telling you like quit, like just cut your losses and move on. So yeah,
Oh, that's a big piece right there.
yeah, I think yeah, you just gotta why continue to make a bad investment, right?
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of times, even me, I'm like, oh man, I already invested so much time. Like, I better keep going. But then months down the line, you're like, oh, I should have just stopped like back then. It would have
Yeah,
wasted,
or
saved me so
you don't
much
gotta
time.
stop or pivot. I would say you
Right.
don't gotta like the financial advising thing. Like, I completely like stopped and pivoted, right? But like you can
Hmm.
do something similar, right? If you don't want to be a financial advisor, you could be a financial analyst, right? Or and that's
Yep.
actually what I ended up doing eventually. Um, and now like I'm a full time like data person, like doing it for real.
Did that stuff that you were learning beforehand like apply to any of the stuff you're doing now
What do you
within
mean,
the
like?
within the financial area? Because you said you hated like
Oh,
finances, and then now you're in like data, but you
well,
just put time into it, right?
yeah. So like I didn't hate the fight. So I like corporate finance. So more
Yep.
like being a financial advisor, like the selling aspect and
I
like all
see. Okay.
that. Yeah, I like great career. I just didn't want to be that guy, right? I wanted to do like I wanted to get in the data. So like corporate
Right.
finance was what I was more interested in. So I did feel like it helped me a little bit, like understanding like what certain financial metrics mean.
Hmm.
And I'm not like no wizard or anything, but I kind of like I've seen everything enough times that I kind of remember I could kind of figure it out. So yeah, I would say it helped a little bit, right? Because I do some finance projects at work where I have to know about finance topics
Yep.
and coming up with calculations. So I would say it helped. Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Okay. So now we're talking about data analytics, and you're in this data role. And for the listeners, listen, or even the watchers, now we're doing video. Like, can you tell us about like what is a day in the life for you, and like what do you do on a day to day basis?
Yeah, so this is actually like my first like I would say like big boy analytics job, right?
Hmm.
So and I'm doing it in the consulting, right? So we have different clients, and let's say like you had a business and you had data needs, right? Let's say you guys need complete help, like you need tool recommendations. So we come in, we look at what you currently have, what you want to do, we recommend what's possible, right? And then we like build out your analytics infrastructure, right? Or let's say you're a bigger company, right? Let's say you have one specific need and we just go in and do like that one part, right? So we do one or the other. So right now we're doing like a full like recommendation and like implementation process. So my job currently is like building dashboards, right? So I do like some small like low level coding, like to analyze data, to clean data, but most of my time is spent like around visualizations, either like drafting them, right, making like rough drafts, we call them wireframes, or
Hmm.
actually building them in the system, right? So that's pretty much what my core role is like every day. And then I'll branch off and I'll do like some work in Snowflake, some more work in Python, but I'm mostly built around like anything with the visualizations or whether it's like switching data sources. I can do a lot of different things. I'm just kind of being broad right now, but that's pretty
Yep.
much what I could be doing in a day. Not all at
That's
once,
yeah.
but
Yeah. There's a lot you mentioned there. So you're talking about Snowflake, infrastructure, data. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you just mentioned there.
yeah.
And if someone is just starting to like learn about this or figure out this in their military transition, like, what do you recommend from like a resource standpoint that they leverage to learn more about this?
Specifically for data and stuff and
Yeah.
analytics. I am a co-lead for what we call the Veterans Advocacy Tableau user group. So Tableau is just like a software tool to help you build visualizations, right? If you're interested, like go check it out. So I run something like that, and that's where we kind of host monthly events where it's not just for veterans, right? But spouses, kids of veterans, anyone related to the veteran community, and honestly not, right? You can be whoever and show up to our meetings, and we go over different things about analytics, like specifically for transitioning veterans, analytics in general. We just had a guy that's a professor down at a school in Louisiana. He did like his because he's like he helps people get break into the career, so he was just sharing all his resources, right? So we do that stuff monthly. Definitely start following people on LinkedIn that are in that world. And that kind of ties in, like, let's say you wanted to be a data analyst, right? You would connect with someone like myself that's already kind of doing it and kind of like, there's a whole way of how to make connections and stuff on LinkedIn and how to use it effectively. But do that. I mean, Google, there's ChatGPT, go on LinkedIn and find like, I would find like Marine Corps veteran and data analytics, right? Just search it somehow like that and just like reach out, talk to people, there and definitely start following people on LinkedIn. I'd say that's been my biggest source.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, hold up. So you mentioned ChatGPT. Let's talk
Yeah,
about that a little bit. What are your thoughts
yeah.
on that? as like a
I
data
think
person.
I think it's cool, man. Like honestly, but there's like two sides to that coin, right? So like you can, if you just solely use it, then you're kind of like cheating, right? Because like you're not getting better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it has been helpful though. Like it's helpful, like definitely, because you have to like for especially for what I do, like you have to be able to look at code and you have to understand like why it might not be working or why it even does what it does. So you have to be honest with yourself about that, right? I would say
Hmm.
just in general, even myself too. I kind of got to lay off the chat GPT sometimes, but like, but it,
Yeah.
but overall, I would say it's great, and it's probably going to get better and
Hmm.
better. I mean, I'm not. That's like a whole nother like super smart side of the world I kind of involved in, but I'm like nowhere near that. But it's pretty cool. I think it's way better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how
Yeah,
that transforms over time. I've definitely used it as to a supplement to like what I'm doing on a day to day too.
yeah, definitely. Like what? Like fix this code for me. That's like,
Hmm.
or how do I do this?
Yeah, for sure. So so we talked about data. We talked about how you got into it. But then another thing that really stood out to me when, and the reason I connected with you is the personal stuff you're doing on the side and how your
Yeah.
personal stuff kind of intertwines with your data stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, um, once you start, so let's say like you're brand new, right, and you're looking at a data, right, you're gonna hear a lot of people say project portfolio. What is a project portfolio, right? They might have this in other industries. I'm gonna assume photography. In data, project portfolio is right. Like let's say I make a lot of visualizations in certain tools, right? And I do coding. My project portfolio is basically like a repository of all that stuff, right? So I'm just like kind of talking like super high level, just keep it simple, because it can go really deep. But so you have your repository of personal projects, right? In the data world, you want to one of the big advice I got was post on LinkedIn about your projects, right? And I'm like, I'm kind of not like a posty type of guy, but like all the stuff I all my success in data is because I posted about it on LinkedIn in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And someone reached out to me about it, right? So like I have like my jujitsu data or just like personal other projects that I've done, like in real estate or something. I have it online. I share it. I talk about it. I post it on LinkedIn. So essentially, like make a project, post it on LinkedIn. You do that enough, employers, data people, people will think about you when opportunities come, especially if you're like cool in your network. So it's kind of just like imagine like a little like water funnel like in Mario, right? This is how I see it, right? Like the old Mario game with like the green pipes in the water.
Hmm.
You just kind of like flow it, right? So do projects, post on LinkedIn, like, comment, share. People might see you, opportunities might come, and kind of take it from there, right? So that's essentially how I mix my personal stuff with it, right? So a lot of people do like business stuff, right? I was like, let me do jujitsu stuff, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I mixed my two, I guess like loves or only thing I really like to do is like jujitsu and like data into personal projects, and those personal projects, right, have helped me stand out in interviews. I had a lot of interviews during the summer, and then ultimately led me getting a job, and people still like reach out to me about stuff like that. So long
That's
way to
awesome. So tell us about like one of the most interesting insights that you found about your jujitsu stats.
most interesting insights. Let's see. I don't think it's anything that I probably didn't know, but or actually no, this is right. So I love chasing like the back, right? So like rear naked choke, like a strangle, right? So that's my favorite submission. I actually have more arm bars, which is just like I'm on your side and I'm isolating an arm and I'm like hyperextending it. I actually have more of those than my favorite submission. I just like saw that not too long ago.
Oh, that's interesting. So have you switched
Yeah,
up your style at all based off of
nah.
that?
I mean, I think about it. I still always chase for my favorite, but if something's there, like I'm not gonna not go for it, right? I'm
Yeah.
always. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
more.
sure, for
I'm
sure.
more. I'm more of like whatever works, right, and
Yep.
whatever works first.
That's cool to hear that you're doing this stuff on the side, but then like you're mixing in like what you're learning to
Yeah,
figure out like how to grow.
yeah, no, because like for me, like I kind of like have ADHD and stuff. I didn't score that high on the ASVAB, so like if stuff doesn't interest me, like that I'm, because I can do like a data course on just straight finance course, and I did last weekend. It was like SQL, like the language, like the query stuff, like how to get from databases. That was on finance. I did it last weekend, but like I felt the learning for me stuck more is when I was like doing that same coding stuff, but with like jujitsu instead of finance. I switched out the terminology and the data with like my jujitsu stuff, like that. And then like I was like practicing concepts like do this in SQL, do this in R with my own data, and that helped me. Like for me, it just worked like retaining better. You know what I mean? Because it was personal, and then like when I spoke about it in interviews, I knew it in and out,
Yep.
and that portrayed confidence. Like I knew what the hell I was talking about.
I think that's huge
Yeah,
when veterans are getting out, because sometimes there's not like that one-to-one experience of like you need 5 years of experience doing this or 4 years, all those crazy things. But if you're doing stuff on the side, you can speak to that in those interviews and say, "Hey, I have the experience doing those projects."
yeah, totally right. Like my job, like I didn't have. I had all my data experience was like personal projects, like on my own, right? I mean, not every career has the opportunity to do that. I'm, I know, right? But like, that's just what you got to do, man. I did a lot of free work too.
Hmm.
I actually helped my first like real, on my own mini client project data was this other Marine. He's a reserve Marine, and him and his sister own mostly a women's sports like CrossFit apparel company called the Chesty. So they're running that, and I met him at like another like Marine for Life event in West Palm Beach. It's like it was honestly just a couple Marines getting together, getting beers, because it wasn't that much many like people that would come. So I met him there. When opportunity and whatever they say meet, like something happens, right? I
Yep.
forgot the saying. You know what you think
Yeah, it's like
you know what I'm trying.
opportunity and hard work is like turns into luck or
Yeah,
something, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, right. So like around that same time, February 2021, I was like already a couple months into learning about analytics, and then I met
Hmm.
this guy, and I was like, "Yo, Scott, this is what I'm doing in school, right? This is what I'm learning on my own. This is what I want to do. Can we set up a meeting and I can like show you, right?"
Hmm.
And then I kind of played the Marine card. I was like, "Come on, Marines, blah blah blah."
Yep.
Yeah, so we did, and I showed him like not even stuff I had done, just like drafts of like what I'm learning, and he was just like, "Hell yeah, dude!" So he sent me some data. I made him a pitch deck. So they were looking to raise $1 million from investors. I don't know if they did or, so I helped them make like basically a pitch deck, a PowerPoint with
Hmm.
their data in these very nice visualizations. So I don't know whatever turned of that, but that story and that experience, like I didn't get paid to do that. Like
Yep.
Scott might have got me a couple beers or something, but like he let me. And so working for free, some data, like you gotta do that, and then eventually you do it enough, and you talk about it, and you post about it, and luck keeps happening, as they
Absolutely. Yeah,
say.
that's always good then to always keep networking then, right? And show your work. Which actually is I want to go back to when it comes to showing your work and displaying like everything that you've done, because I feel like in when I was growing up or even in the military, everyone always tells you, be humble, just kind of like keep your head down and then just like keep moving forward, right? But
Right.
in LinkedIn, it's the complete opposite. Or even in your career, it's the complete opposite. You have to brag about all the things that you've done, and not necessarily brag to boast about it, but to brag to show that you're capable, right? Can you tell us about how you've leveraged LinkedIn to tell everybody about the great things that you've done?
I would say so. I've kind of like struggled with like being humble, like not like being humble, but like kind of being overly humble sometimes, because
Hmm.
like I know like when I get like big headed about something, like I know it doesn't turn out great, and I get humbled, right? So I always just do my best to try to stay humble, and I don't see it as like bragging. It's like if no one knows about you, right? If no one knows what you're doing, how are you ever going to get a job, or how are you ever going to, so it's kind of getting over like putting yourself out there. Like I'm intentional about like my posting, like, I'm doing this because like I know this is going to help my career in some way, shape. So you have to be like intentional with it, right? Obviously, with good intentions, right? Like don't like post anything that's like BS, like but like this is my goal, right? This is what the data people that I've had like quick chats with or that gave me advice say you got to do, right? So put yourself out there, obviously do it in good fashion, but and then you just got to get over it, right? Like people have like post anxiety, And I mean, like, I was kind of iffy about it at first, but if someone lays out to me like a clear path and like I know it works and I've tested it myself, like I'm gonna keep doing it. So, and like to this day, even though I have my job, I'm not looking for anything. I still
Mm-hmm.
post, just to stay relevant. So
Yep.
I would say like leverage, like shout out to my boy Albert Bellamy. Like when people ask LinkedIn advice for me, I always say just follow whatever Albert Bellamy says. Like because everything he said and kind of what other people said similarly, I just implemented that and gotten like opportunities, like actual jobs that have paid through LinkedIn. Like that's what it's used for. Like
Yep.
so why not use it that way?
That's huge. Yeah, definitely leverage LinkedIn for sure. Do you have any final thoughts or final tips that you want to leave with the audience?
I would say I thought transitioning was going to be a lot harder than it was. Like I was kind of fortunate in some regards. Like when I left Michigan and I got out, I had a place to go in Florida. My wife was already established. We don't have kids or anything, so that made life a lot easier. But I would say like if you want to get out or you're not sure, just make sure you're ready because like it's hard to say, but like you could know in like 6 months and that's all you have. But like I would say while you're in the military, save your money, try to stay out of consumer debt. I mean, not say. I mean, like try to find what you want to do and be okay with it by changing and pivoting. But stay occupied. Stay good, busy, right? And can find a tribe, right? Church, gym, whatever. Because I did that for just like school and work for like 18 months after I got out, and I put on some weight, and then once I started grappling again and doing martial arts, I found like my tribe, and I just like it's good for all that mental health stuff too. So stay active, stay busy, plan well ahead. You know,
Awesome.
it's easy. It's easy.
Absolutely. Awesome. Final thoughts there. People want to follow up. They want to, see what you're posting. They want to learn from you, or they just want to reach out to have questions. How do they get a hold of you?
Instagram, it's underscore Abraham. On LinkedIn, Abe Diaz. Yeah, follow me on there. I'm also if you're interested in jujitsu and you want to do some analytics, let me know. I can help you out there. I just started a company called Substats where I basically extending my project portfolio but trying to make some money out of it.
I'll make sure to leave all that in the show notes. You said Substats?
Yeah, Substats.app.
All right, I'll make sure to add that. Well, thanks, Abe. Appreciate all the knowledge you shared. This is awesome content. Appreciate you being on, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and now YouTube. Also, please consider leaving a review and let me know what you think. All the links we talked about will be on the show notes, or you can go to tapinwithtako.buzzsprout.com. Talk to y'all next time. Peace.
In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. In the Subaru with my Nikes on the dash. Nikes on the dash. Nikes on the dash.
West side in the field, what's real? I got my whole squad popping like they on 2 pills. No sign, listen, got 2 mil. I ain't meek when it come to big banks like my first name Phil.